Hello everyone. Tonight we're going to talk about forbidden words. I actually read a book on the subject and I thought it'd be really interesting to share with you. So if you're interested in reading this book, it is called Forbidden Words, Taboo and the Censoring of Language by Keith Allen and Kate Burridge, and it was published in 2006. In this book, the taboos considered are bodies under phobia, the organ and acts of sex, and defecation and diseases, death and killing, naming, addressing, touching and viewing person and sacred objects and places, and food gathering, preparation and consumption. So as you probably know, people censor language constantly. By default, people are polite, euphemistic, orthophomistic, and, inoffensive. So you guys probably know what euphemistic means, right? But you probably don't know what orthophomistic means. When someone is being orthophomistic, that means they are using neutral expressions, which means that they're not being too sweet or overly polite like they are being when they're being euphemistic. So in our society, we have a lot of taboo. But what is the origin of taboo, you ask? Well, it actually comes from the Tongan taboo, which Tongan is the Polynesian language of the Tonga Island, and it meant to forbid or forbidden. So linguists say that the word comes from Proto-Oceanic tapu, which means sacred or forbidden. And you can also find this word in the Maori language, where tapu means to be under ritual restriction. Anyway, the word was first mentioned by Captain James Cook when describing the Tahitian behavior. He called the custom of women never eating with men taboo, and that is because every time he tried to ask the women why they would not eat with the men, they would never give any answer. Anyway, infraction of taboos can be dangerous for society and for the individual. And there are different kinds of taboos, and some can be milder or less serious than others. In any group or society, taboos naturally arise. And to an outsider, these taboos can, appear silly or without grounds. So first we will talk about sweet talking and offensive language. We'll start with politeness. Well, politeness depends on the relationship between the speakers, their audience, the subject that is being discussed, and whether it is spoken or written. So politeness is bound to space, time, and context. Impoliteness, on the other hand, is actually easier to describe than politeness. We can talk about the concept of dysphemism. What is dysphemism? Obviously, you might not know that, so you already know that orthophomism, which means neutral from ancient Greek orthos, which means traits, and euphemism from ancient Greek euphemismes or phemismes, so means fortunately and phemi means I speak, while dysphemism is the intentional use of harsh and offensive words. And like if the rooster could shut up. Dysphemism is the intentional use of harsh and offensive words. Dysphemism is the opposite of euphemism. It is motivated by fear, disdain, hatred, and contempt. And speakers use dysphemisms to express these feelings of annoyance or hatred, frustration, humiliation, and degradation. Impolite behavior is offensive, therefore it is dysphemistic. On the other hand, orthophomism and euphemism arise from self-censoring, which is conscious or unconscious, resulting in the speaker to be polite. And orthophomism is basically straight talking. It is more literal than the corresponding euphemism, and euphemism is more figurative than the corresponding orthophomism. For example, to give you a simple example, an orthophomism would be feces, dysphemism would be shit, and a euphemism would be poo. Now, it's going to get a little bit more complicated. It is actually also possible to use euphemistic dysphemisms and dysphemistic euphemisms. I know, it sounds a bit tricky, but listen well. For instance, if the speaker wants to swear but does not want to appear too rude, he will use conventionalized euphemistic dysphemisms such as gosh or shoot. On the other hand, some locutions that should be dysphemistic are used in a euphemistic way. For example, the speaker who wants to display affection or friendship could say stuff like, you old bastard, or you silly little hag, which are dysphemistic euphemisms. Is everything clear? Okay, now let's move on to bad language, jargon, slang, swearing, and insults. What is jargon? Well, jargon can be viewed as dysphemistic because, well, to start with, jargon comes from the same source as hargle, which is itself comes from the Indo-European root garg, which meant a throat, or referred to any noise or sound made by the throat. And actually, in Middle English, it was used to describe the chattering of birds. How cute. For most, jargon is a contemptuous mode of speech using unfamiliar terms only peculiar to a particular set of persons, who would be scholars, philosophers, etc. So jargon has two functions. One, to serve as a technical language for precise communication. Two, to promote in-group solidarity and exclude those who do not belong to that community. For example, linguists find the term word to be too lacking and imprecise for all their purposes. They distinguish between grammatical, orthographical, and phonological words and use new terms like lex or lexeme or morph or morpheme, etc., to express these distinctions. To non-linguists, the jargon of linguistics can be perceived as dysphemistic because it seems to deal with a familiar subject, which is language, but it is almost incomprehensible to those who do not control linguistically, which is the jargon of linguistics. On the other hand, this jargon is essential to study and understand how language works. Therefore, jargon can be both dysphemistic and orthophomistic. Now let's move on to slang. The etymology of slang is uncertain, and the word first appeared in the late 18th century to refer to the pattern of criminals. Its meaning actually often overlaps with the definitions of jargon and argot, which are both borrowed from French, and cant, which is cognate with Latin cantare. Anyway, in the 18th century, slang was the vulgar tone of the lowest black words in the nation. By association, slang is basically bad language. So slang can be a reduction of words or expression. For example, chill for chill out, cuz for cousin, stuff for good stuff, later for see you later, night for good night, etc., etc. Abbreviation comes from the repetition and frequency of certain words, so slang dates much faster than jargon. What is slang for a generation can become outdated or mainstream for the next one. And if slang survives, it ceases to be slang. Might be the case for the word cool, for example. It kind of stopped being slang by intruding into neutral style, so cool is not cool anymore. Anyway, slang can show the inventiveness and poetic inventivity of people with rhyme, quasi-reduplication, alliteration, pleasing rhymes, etc., etc. For example, take the Australian expression siphon the python. Quite beautiful. Well, it means urinate, or use your noggin, that means use your head, or he lost his bottle, that means he got scared. And another feature of slang is that it can be replaced by standard language without losing any communicative efficiency, which is not the case of jargon, as I explained it earlier. Now, let's move on to swearing and cursing. Swearing is restricted to colloquial style, much like slang. The original meaning of swear is to take oath. I'm sure you knew that, usually in the eyes of God, or in relation to a sacred object. To swear at someone is to insult someone by using all kinds of dysphemisms. For example, comparison of people with animals, like bitch, pussy, cow. Actually, it is funny to notice that all of these insults are meant for women, but anyway. Secondly, epithets derived from tabooed bodily organs, bodily effluvia, and sexual behaviors. To give you a simple example, even though attitude towards homosexuality seems to be changing over the past few years, it remains a very common insult to accuse a man of having sex with another man. For example, when saying it sucks, the original meaning of the expression it sucks was referring to the homophobic jibe he sucks cock, but it has lost its meaning in most people's mind, which results in the use of he sucks or she sucks or it sucks without people even thinking of its original meaning. Three dysphemistic epithets on real physical characteristics treated as abnormalities. For example, insults such as baldy, fatty, four eyes, I don't know. And fourth, epithet referring to mental subnormalities such as silly, idiot, fool, etc., etc. So, in certain aspects, swearing, jargon, and slang can be dysphemistic and impolite, thus subject to taboo and censoring. In others, they can be a solidarity sign in a community or a group. Now, let's move on to taboos related to killing, death, and disease. Killing is taboo, except for our enemies. People we don't like are, well, told to drop dead or go to hell. And death is also taboo. Many metaphors are actually used as euphemisms to talk about death. He was left behind, such a tragic loss, she will be sadly missed. All of these are euphemisms, euphemistic metaphors used to talk about death. Taboo leads to a renewal of language, as you can see. Censoring leads to the creation of euphemisms and dysphemisms. Now, there are also taboos regarding food and smell. Let's start with food. So all societies have food taboos. Beef for Hindus and pork for Jews and Muslims, animals for vegetarians, insects, dog and cats for most Anglos and Europeans, etc. So the notion of death is even almost absent from the cooking vocabulary. If you take a look to a cooking book, you will never see the words kill, draw, gut, pluck, hack, which have all disappeared. Naming animal parts can also be an issue. Liver as a dish has a French name. It is called foie gras or pâté de foie. And French terms are actually used a lot in cuisine. Think about cuisine, terrine, I don't know how you pronounce that, terrine, and casserole, and many more. And it has been so for centuries, really. In Old English, animals are pig, boar, swine, deer, sheep, ox, cow. But when they are dishes, they are called by their French names, which are ham, gammon, pork, venison, mutton, beef, veal. Anyway, now moving on to smell. So the description of smell usually borrows from tastes. Think about the words fruity, herby, sour, rank. And there are many more words to describe bad smells than to describe good smells. Even the word smell, which should be neutral and inodorous, has some kind of pejorative connotation. If you say he smells or she's smelly, that's not good, obviously. And what else? Well, French and Latin are sources for English euphemisms regarding smell. Think about the words odor, scent, perfume, fragrance, aroma, etc., etc. Moving on. Now our last taboo is related to sex and bodily effluvia. Here are a few facts you might not know. Incest and pedophilia are euphemisms. Euphemisms for pedophilia would be child molestation or sexual abuse of children. Yet there is no conventional euphemism for incest, except for the slang metaphor, roll your own, maybe. But who says that? The use of the swearing words such as shit, crap, fuck relate to sex and body fluids, both taboo in modern society. But now, consider the fact that the use of blood or bloody or bleeding as an insult or a malediction shows that actually, and surprisingly enough, blood is more strongly tabooed than urine and feces and death. So in the end, it seems that linguistic prohibition is doomed to failure. censorships and taboos provoke an exuberance of expression, which are all about the forbidden. And this is explained by the thrill of transgression, the display of an in-group solidarity, the display of endearment, or even the desire of having fun. So I hope that you enjoyed this video and that forbidden words put you to sleep by now. Bye.